It's Friday, the 13th of July 2018, and welcome to Navigating Your Day. In Jinshin Jitsu, safety energy lock number 13 came into the universe, meaning love thy enemies. And safety energy lock number 13 is located here on either side of the breastbone in the center of the chest, right over the heart on the left, and on either side of the heart chakra. In Jinshin Jitsu, the bust line of the body, this top part, is associated with our spiritual and our emotional connection. This is about our connection to our soul, I suppose. That's the spiritual connection, not an intellectual spiritual connection. It's that connection to our heart, to the actual, our angelic nature, because that resides here in the heart chakra area. Now, I don't know if you'll remember, but on the 10th, I told you that safety energy lock number 10 was located, in the center of the chest, but at the back, halfway along the shoulder blade, between the shoulder blade and the spine. And safety energy lock number 10 means air, or the outpouring of limitless life power, also known as the warehouse of abundance. So when your warehouse of abundance is open, when you're connected to the limitless outpouring of life power, when you're connected to the source of who you are, that part of you that comes directly from source, then it is easy for you to open your heart and to love your enemies, because you realize that you actually have no enemies. They're only other people. Fundamentally, you can't love your enemies until you love yourself. So our biggest enemy is usually ourselves. We speak to ourselves in ways that we would never speak to other people. We treat ourselves in ways that we don't treat other people. And we punish ourselves in ways that we would never punish other people. And most of that we do subconsciously. So when we open safety energy lock number 13, it helps to make that self-abuse, shall we say, conscious. And when it becomes conscious, when it comes into the light, then we can actually transform it. And the more we transform it, the more we fill that warehouse of abundance that happens in safety energy lock number 10. Because the safety energy locks are all connected to one another. And as in front, so we have the same at the back. So 13 is a 4, and 4 is the visionary. 4 is able to see the big picture. 4 is the one that can break the boundaries of the box in which we have maybe, cornered ourselves into, that box of perception of how the world works, of what other people are like, of how relationships work, of how you manifest in the universe. We box ourselves in by limitations of thought. And 4 helps us to break the boundaries of those boxes. It helps us to get outside of the boundaries that we've imposed on ourselves. It also, if we've been too out there, if we haven't imposed sufficient boundaries in order to keep ourselves secure and safe, or if we haven't imposed boundaries that allow other people not to actually take advantage of us. If we don't have firm enough boundaries, then others can overrun our boundaries. So 4 helps us to establish boundaries, and it also helps us to stretch our boundaries and think beyond the boundaries. So 4 is the visionary, 4 is the maverick, 4 is the out-of-the-box thinker, and 4 is the one that can see the big picture. So 4 helps us to connect to the big picture view of our lives. So when we feel mired in our current situation or the problems that we're currently experiencing, because most of us don't feel trapped by our happiness, okay? We feel trapped by situations that make us less than happy. So 4 helps us to, first of all, connect to the truth of what really is going on. And it helps us to connect to that essence of ourselves, which is much bigger than our current situation. So it's as if it teleports us out of our current situation and gives us the big picture overview. And usually when you can see the big picture, then your stress associated with your current reality decreases. 4 is about truth. It's about integrity. 4 is the investigator. 4 doesn't like to be lied to. 4 has a gift of uncovering the lie. So 4 is very much about connecting to our own truth so that we can be in integrity with who we are and stop trying to be what others want us to be, but actually be true to who we are. Because mostly, that whole thing about not loving yourself and being unkind to yourself is because we are continuously striving to be who we think others need us to be in order to be loved. We all want to be loved. for who we are. We all want to be loved, right? And we actually all want to be loved for who we really are. However, our early programming has taught us that when we behave the way other people want us to, then we're more likely to get that acceptance and that love. So we spend much of our lives trying to live up to the expectations of others, trying to live according to the values of others, and not being in integrity with ourselves. Because on some level, we think that if we are who we really are, the warts and the magnificence and everything else, that we will not be loved. And that's when we start speaking badly to ourselves. You're such a moron. You're so stupid. If only you were more like so-and-so. You know, that voice in your head, that's the disapproval of every authority figure you've ever had in your life, basically. And that's telling you that who you are is not enough to be loved. So when you work on Safety Energy Lock number 13, and when you can connect to the energy of the 4, which of course we have very strongly today because we have the 4 in the hero position also, then you can get the big picture overview for your life. You can also, you can broaden your vision that you have for yourself and for others, and you can connect to your truth and your integrity. Who I really am. Sometimes that's very difficult because who I really am is not only light and love. Sometimes always, not even almost, all right? Who I really am is light and love and hate and darkness in equal amounts. And we don't want to admit the hate and darkness part. So we become blind to that. And then we are out of integrity with ourselves. And that's usually when the trouble starts. 4 is an earth number, so it's all about practicality. It's about practically where are you putting those boundaries down today. 4 is about discovering the truth about yourself and about others. We've got these 2 earth numbers in the life map today, and then the rest of the life map has got a lot of water in it today. So luckily, the 4s will help to anchor us in this emotion, but there may be a lot of emotion around today as well. And that emotion, if you are connecting to Safety Energy Lock number 13, you can direct that love thy enemies to yourself. So, you know, you may have to forgive yourself for having spent the last, I don't know how many years of your life hating yourself. You have to let go of those perceptions that you have of yourself. And even the negative perceptions, those are difficult to let go of, and when you let go of them, you need to grieve them. So it's possible that there might be some emotion and some sadness, and that your emotions are easily touched today. We, as I said, have the 4 as the hero and as the day number. In the villain position today, we have the 8, which is also an earth number. So when we have 8 in the villain position, we find it difficult to say no. So once again, the only reason why we would say no, or not say no, sorry, the only reason why we would say yes to something that we don't want to do, or that we feel we're not capable of doing, or that, you know, when we feel we're being stretched too far, the only reason why we'd say yes when actually we mean no is because we don't want to be disapproved of. We don't want to be disapproved of, we don't want to be rejected, and we don't want to not be, I actually don't seem to be able to speak today. We say yes when we mean no because we're out of integrity with ourselves, because we don't have firm enough boundaries. And the reason why we don't have firm enough boundaries is because we're frightened that if we say no, then they're not going to love us. But if we are in integrity with ourselves and we are connected to who we really are, and if we are kind to ourselves by not saying no, yes, when we mean no, then we are loving ourselves. And it's more important for you to love yourself than it is for anyone else to love you. Because the paradox is that once you are in integrity with yourself, and you are real, and you are authentic towards yourself, and you love yourself, that's when other people show up in the same way. And that's when you give other people the freedom of being that way too. Just remember, you're an authority figure for others. So in the same way in which you're trying to make sure that other people don't reject you, there are a lot of people in your life that are making sure that you don't reject them. Particularly your children, all right, or your co-workers, or your subordinates. Anybody who is looks up to you, essentially, is trying to make sure that you don't reject them, because they're also frightened that they won't be loved for who they really are. So it's a bit deep for a Friday, but you know, these are deep times. Also, solar eclipse today. So solar eclipses are times of great energy. It all depends on what's happening in your own astrological chart as to how much they'll affect you. But we might find ourselves being quite emotional and feeling a little bit disconnected today, all right? Not quite in our bodies, although the Earth and the Life Map today will help to keep us grounded. Of course, we've got Jinshin Jitsu. You can open Safety Energy Lock number 13 by holding what we call high 19. So halfway along the forearm, you just hold both sides. You open 13 and you open 10 at the back, so you get a double whammy. Or you can hold the middle finger. We're still on the middle finger today, right? So the middle finger helps to harmonize the liver and gallbladder organ function energy. It helps us to trust in ourselves. It helps us to believe in ourselves. It helps us to connect to our truth and our integrity. And it helps us to remove residual fear as well as the resultant anger and resentment when we disappoint ourselves or we feel like we disappoint others. Hope you have an amazing day, and I'll speak to you again on Monday.